This is Dr. M. Naglakshmi. Welcome you all for this 5-day lecture program. Today, the fifth and final session of this program. So, let's see some information regarding locative fiction, block poetry, and 3D literature. Then, a brief sum up of electronic literature and its genres, what we have seen for these many days. Before we move on to that, let me read the disclaimer note. The pictorial, visual, audio, video material used here are taken from various websites purely for academic and research purposes of this program. There has been no intention of economic benefit out of it or harm anyone or any community. There can be pictures, videos, slogans that may contain odd language or ideological implications. Open-minded for such realistic presentation. The views and opinions expressed in the program presentation are those of the authors, speakers, and do not represent the perspectives of any organization, organizer, and organizer. Society is not responsible in any case. After all, the material comes from real sources which are useful for the academic and knowledge sharing purposes only. Thank you. Happy learning to all of us. With this note, I welcome you all for this final session of 5-day lecture program. First, let's see 3D literature. As we have seen this 3D literature in our day 2 program, here I just want to say one more point regarding 3D literature. The computer displays are limited when it comes to 3D presentation. But a major development in this field is Cave, a space equipped with screens on which computer-generated images are projected. Together with the special glasses that Cave users have to wear, this creates the impression that the images emanate from the walls in 3D. Some works use the illusion of a third dimension to present and manipulate text. As I said earlier, that we have seen this 3D work in our day 2 lecture, even we have seen a 3D fiction, right? At the end of the program, I'll take you to that same mode. As we know, even some of the TV brands, they have launched 3D with 3D options, right? The technical options to view 3D pictures, and they provide 3D glasses also. Those kind of TV, even we can view the normal pictures in a 3D as 3D movie, but we cannot get that clarity if the picture was not picturized in 3D mode, right? So this is the information I just want to tell you about 3D literature. And when you see 3D fiction, 3D poetry in the ELO collections, you can get few things. 3D fiction, you will get few things, because as they suggested that computer displays are limited, so it's not possible for them to collect 3D things more. The things which they have stored there are user friendly for the computer screen. Okay, the next, digital storytelling. So we have seen, right, the major genre of digital literature, poetry and fiction, and yesterday we have seen the fiction, some of the kinds of fiction, right? So here, how the storytelling developed, the digital storytelling developed. Actually, they started with, computer games. Before that, they have started in Michael Joyce, that afternoon, the story. Before the www, right? They had written in hypertext fiction. But This storytelling, digital storytelling started, and almost every one of us in our early age might have come across this thing. When you see the video, you will come to know there is one game at least you might have played in your young age. Do you hear the sound, sir? Yes? So, as we have seen in this video, I think many of us might have played at least one of the games they showed in this video, right? Okay, this is the way the digital storytelling actually developed. You would have seen in this video that various development from 1990s to till 2008 2009, because the video they have released in between the 2009 and 10, right? So you would have seen the digital storytelling actually developed through games, right? The another one now we're going to see is locative fiction. As the name indicates, this fiction developed when the GPS technology got introduced. The term locative fiction encompassed a wide range of e-literature styles such as net art, kinetic poetry, or even hypertext fiction can also be wholly digital, such as a story that appears on your phone, or could be augmented or even virtual reality. Locative narrative embeds their story to particular location using that technology, and users read or listen to them using a mobile device. It appeared as the invention and development of mobile devices. Locative literature can be ephemeral, and that is, its impermanence is also part of the attraction of the form. There are long-term works which take a particular location and build on it, and others which encourage readers to stay longer. Ben Russell's 1999 Head Map Manifesto highlighted the incredible pre-signs and its encouragement to readers to think about space and location as opportunities for gathering and placing information through interaction with personalized tech. He went as far as suggested use of proto-Google Glass, designed to reveal hidden stories of the city Oslo. The next, Andres Sundin's Lovis Textopia. For this Textopia, you can get article in ELO, review article regarding Textopia. Andres Sundin's Lovis Textopia was an experiment in facilitating public contributions to an experimental story system. This approach drew in collaborative writing, found text into literary compositions, and sought exploration of place through the act of writing. No discussion of locative literature can close without mention of Elie Horowitz, written under the pseudonym of Gus Twintig, On the Clock Without a Face and a Silent Story. The story of the emergence of a generation of children who had never read or write stands foremost in the canon, where The Clock Without a Face sent readers scurrying across the continent on a real-life treasure hunt for handmade jewel-encrusted numbers. The silent history was developed as an iOS app filled with uploaded testimony of its characters and GPS responsive segments that are switched on where the reader lands in specific locations. So the reader has to go to the specific location so that the GPS location informs to receive the information to move further. Such as Chicago's O'Hare Airport or a neighborhood in Lower Manhattan. The form occupies the liminal space between reader engagement and play. The writers noted here use setting as the key element of great storytelling, right? Setting is the key element of locative fiction. Setting as the key element of great storytelling and their augmentation of their work through the possibilities offered by the physical environment and available technology, underline the value in enriching the reading experiences. Good locative literature should give you more. It should at the very least give you the dunk and let you take the pick home for your efforts. The next one is block fiction. As defined by Dustin M., block fiction is a serialized literature published to a blog that is written in a diary format. Often, but not necessarily, the fictional writer of the blog will interact with its readers. So it's not necessary. If the writer wants, they can interact with the readers. Dustin M. has compiled a list of different characteristics and possible iterations of those characteristics. Urban Urban 30 is a very famous blog. Urban 30 is a blog that consists of talented writers from the US, Canada, and England. So here, each writer represents one character throughout the blog. At the Urban 30 writers page, you can find information on each writer. This blog creates a space for each writer to develop his or her own hero story. Since one writer is in control of only one character. So, in order to have a guest appearance of another character in his or her story, the writer must collaborate with the owner of the character. This creates more exciting atmosphere for the Urban 30 blog. This is the specialty of that blog. It's not necessary that every blog has to have the same kind of qualities. And you have to understand that different blog writers are there. Here, this, blog fiction, the Urban 30 is a kind of blog. It has a set of rules. They followed that. This is a very famous one. That's why I mentioned here. Here, let me show you a video how the blogs are created in way back and how Yes. So there is nothing impossible. Okay, so here the blog poem, Orange Sweatshirt. It is a website designed for computers which features an interactive poem. The poem embraces the participation of the reader. There are a number of slider controls. So if, for instance, the reader would like to see more adjectives, they can move the slider towards neighbor code. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, based on your interest. And they will see more adjectives. Furthermore, if the reader dislikes a word, they can move its position or even delete it altogether. Let's see. This is Orange Sweatshirt. You can read the poem. All right. If you want to, see line breaks like this. Okay. So if you want to change, add, or reduce the number of adjectives, you can do that. You can see here adjectives, reduces, and then if you want 2, 3, 4, 5. In similar way, they have given some names for eroticism, Jane Austen to D.H. Lawrence, right? If you want lesser, Jane Austen, more D.H. Lawrence. That's nice. So even here, if you want to, change the word, okay, or you don't want this word, throw this. You can throw the word which you don't like, right? So this is to interact with the reader, right? So today I have given the overall, the missed out elements for all the genres in electronic literature. So I just want to give a sum up of all those things we have seen so far. Unlike traditional literature, which is written to be published as ink on paper, electronic literature was designed for digital technologies. It exists on computers, on the internet, on CDs, DVDs, and it can take the form of performances or installation. As I told you in the beginning itself, there are certain, softwares you need to install so that you are able to, read certain kinds of work available in volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. I have selected some of the works which I installed Adobe Flash. So most of the works I showed are Adobe Flash works. I couldn't, I tried to install Java, doesn't work out in my laptop, so I didn't take any of the work which needs Java or JavaScript, right? So you have to understand certain things to read electronic literature. Now for print literature, there is no problem at all. If you have a book, you can read. If you don't have a book, you can borrow it, or you can go to library and read. And now PDFs are available, so you can read on your computer or mobile. But in electronic literature, this is not the case. You have to have your PC, internet, and certain technical softwares to be installed in your laptop. And they have options for, iPhones, Mac. So when you see the collection, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, you could see that. At the end of the session, I'll take you how to, go and view the work and read the work. Okay. So unlike traditional literature, which is written to be published as ink on paper, electronic literature was designed for digital technologies. It exists on computers, on the internet, on CDs, DVDs, and it can take the form of performances or installation. That's what I mentioned here. The digital word can be programmed to self-generate, move, respond to reader actions, change over time, and much more. So you'd have, experienced these things for these days. Generate, for generative poems, you'd have understand. Move, the text is moving here and there, right? And that kinetic poems. Respond to readers' actions. So based on your, clicks, it takes you to another level. Change over time, that you would have seen in frequency poem. After, a few seconds, the frequency changes, the poem changes, and much more. So electronic authors take advantage of many different kinds of digital technologies. So the authors who created all those things, they are tech savvy and they know how to use this technology to create a literary work. So even many of us, including me, are not ready to accept some of the things, not everything. Some of the things are really having literary qualities in it. That is, we can keep our views and reviews aside to explore the newborn literature. Many works combine text with images, videos, sound, animation, and programming. That you would have understand, So almost every poem or every fiction, you would have heard some kind of sound, images. Yesterday I showed video games, that game again. In that, it's a game. Even that game, they have introduced some kind of videos which is anyway related to that game. But you have to go to that level and you have to click that icon, then you will get that video. So full of animation. So it takes a lot of time, efforts, and sound knowledge of programming. N. Catherine Hales surveys the development and current state of electronic literature from the popularity of hypertext fiction in the 1980s to the present, focusing primarily on hypertext fiction, network fiction, interactive fiction, locative narratives, installation pieces, code work, generative art, and the flash poem. It also discusses the central critical issues raised by electronic literature, pointing out that there is significant overlap with the print tradition. Of course, you can see here in volume 2, that electronic literature, volume 2, there is fiction, flight paths. I'll take you after some time to that. Flight paths. There are 5 segments. In the 5th segment, when you see, you can relate magic realism. That magic realism, according to Rushdie. Rushdie has used that magic realism in his Midnight Children. According to him, magic realism is like no boundary line between fantasy and reality. There is equal importance to ordinary and extraordinary, right? You would have, you could get that kind of experience when you read that, especially that 5th episode. I'll take you to that location after a few minutes. Okay, so electronic literature is literature. It involves writing and storytelling. No, way back they have started storytelling through video games, and then slowly they moved. Digital technologies have changed the way we create literature because they allow for new and different formats in which literature can happen. To understand this evolution, we will begin by looking at books. These are literary works that are often cited precursors to hypertext. And the list has number of books. I have given here only the selected thing, which everyone, might have come across during their literary travel. Lawrence Sterne, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, 1759. James Joyce, Ulysses, 1922. Julia Coetzee, Hopscotch, 1963. And Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow, 1973. So we can say these works precursors to hypertext, meta-narrative, right? The development of internet and the increasing role of the user or reader in the case of literature require a new view on centuries-old concepts such as reader and author. That is what electronic literature, digital porn. The recipient moves from the point of simply consuming the text to the point of becoming an active participant in the creation of literature, and his reading experience evolves to a completely new level. So it's very important to understand electronic literature's development. Without that ALO, it's not possible. Because of ALO, at least, we get an awareness because of them. They have created 3 volumes. ELO, the Electronic Literature Organization, was founded in 1999 to foster and promote the reading, writing, teaching, and understanding of literature as it develops and persists in a changing digital environment. I have mentioned about ALO in the first day of lecture, but in the first day, maybe you'd have listened, but I don't know whether you'd have realized the importance of ELO. But it is apt when I say again about ELO, definitely you'd have understand, you'd have realized the importance of ELO. That's why I just want to repeat this importance of ELO I mentioned again. The Electronic Literature Organization, whose mission is to promote the writing, publishing, and reading literature in electronic media. According to the ELO, the role of the computer plays in the process of creating the text is very important and offers many conceptual, visual, oral, and interactive opportunities. But one important thing we have to remember, and they emphasize also, that reading and writing still play an essential role in digital literature. So we can see this electronic literature as an option to print literature. It's not a threat to print literature. It's my humble opinion, right? But whatever the mode, still reading and writing play an important role. The electronic literature collection embraces a range of technologies. This also I showed you in the second day, I think. But here it's very apt because for the 4 days I have taken to various places in virtual platform only, right? So here these are the software tools you need to have to read, understand the whole collection of volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. And there are certain work which work in a normal PC setup, that laptop setup which we normally use for our regular purpose. In that setup itself, we can see some of the works. Other than that, you have to, install Flash, that Adobe Flash, Java, JavaScript, Shockwave, VRLML, Ambient. So these are certain things. When I read all those things, people would have thought, oh, she has a sound knowledge in that software. Nothing. Actually, because of this electronic literature, I Googled, collect some information regarding the software tools, and then you have to be very careful, because when you install a software, free software, right, free virus also will come. So you have to have a strong antivirus in your laptop so that you can save your laptop for further reading, right? So these things you have to remember and you have to understand to read digital literature. Evolving literature. Works of electronic literature appeal to configurative reading practices. The field of electronic literature is based on a gift economy and developing a network-based literary culture built on the collaborative practices of globally distributed community of artists, writers, and scholars. As we have seen, the various genres, e-poetry and digital fiction, right? So I showed you that in the first day class, each volume in a separate slide. Here I put all together in one slide, and I have given in my previous PPT the links of these 3 volumes. When you see these 3 volumes together, you can understand the development, even in the arrangement. So here in volume 3, you can see that home, keyword, title, author, country, language, about. So you can, based on your knowledge, you can search. The same thing are available in volume 1 and volume 2 also. You can see here at the end of the slide. and that volume 1 slide at the end. E-poetry according to the official website created by Leonardo Flores is defined as poetry that arises from an engagement with the possibilities offered by digital media. It is also known as electronic poetry or digital poetry. Essentially, it is a poetic genre of electronic literature created by the mediums of online data, algorithms, coding, frequencies, photos, and other electronic platforms that can produce words, movements, and art for the public. Right, so some of the characteristics, as we have seen this in our day 2 lecture program: non-linearity, interactivity, multimedia, transience, 3D, fusion with other art forms. So these are the certain traits you could see in electronic poetry, that is e-poetry, also digital fiction or electronic fiction. So what do the critics say on e-poetry and fiction? As I said earlier, in fan literature, so you can find the secondary sources. Even the primary sources are less. So you can imagine, we hardly get secondary sources. E-poetry exists, but it hardly receives any critical attention compared to traditional printed poetry. Of course, some of them are not ready to accept that e-poetry as poetry itself. We can only regret this lack of interest, but unless we would assume that the e-poetry form is a non-entity reducible to mere story of high-tech gadgetry deprived of any literary value. People feel that because of the high-tech gadgets people are using, they don't know what to do with that. So they just create something or other thing and they call that as digital poetry. There is no literary value at all. We can give no single answer to those willing to valorize or reject the literary and cultural importance of e-poetry. It is easy to argue that compared to mixed media storytelling, the use of language alone can be more liberating to readers. The worlds we imagine are limited only by ourselves. Whereas video games, despite illusions otherwise, are mathematically confined. The worlds we inhabit in games are, while seemingly vast, surrounded by hard-coded even horizons. Points which the player just cannot pass. Because if you want to play in a video game or in interactive fiction and a puzzle, you can wander here and there. There is no such problem. But if you want to move from one level to another level, you have to solve the puzzle. The author puts various roadblocks. You have to solve all those things to go to the next level. It's not like the print book. When we read something, when we get, so curious to know the end, just, go to the last page of the book and read the conclusion. Then, felt satisfied. This is not the case when you read interactive fiction. That is, you have to solve every puzzle created by the author, the framed set of puzzles. So every reader has different set of puzzles. It means that how the reader interacts with the work, right? So, but good stories are not defined by their capacity to be infinite, but the extent to which they make us feel something, whatever their aesthetic confines. Michael Joyce. Michael Joyce is a professor of English at Vassar College, New York, USA. His work, Afternoon, a Story, written in 1987, was among the first works of hypertext fiction. The New York Times called Michael Joyce Afternoon the granddaddy of hypertext fictions. The granddaddy of hypertext fictions. Afternoon has been translated into Italian, German, Polish, and French. In an interview, he was asked questions about his interest and consistency in electronic literature, and he has answered many more. I have given the interview link also at the end of the PPT. The one major question was that his opinion about the main opportunities and challenges for writers of electronic digital working now. His answer for this question: the main opportunities are collaborative, right? So when he was started writing, it was not the case, right? That's why he used that hypercode story space, and his work is available in Eastgate. You can buy his work. It's not available in volume 1, 2 or 3. You have to buy, right? So what he says, the main opportunities for today's writers, digital writers, collaborative. The main challenges are, as always, finding an audience, right? So from his day till today, the technology developed. When he started writing, okay, it was not the case. World Wide Web was not discovered, right? So when he started writing, he used story space, hypercode, and his works now available in Eastgate. But now anybody can write if they are a little bit, tech savvy. Anybody can write. Why I'm saying anybody can write? Because when you see some of the poetries in this platform, that electronic literature, it's really hard to accept those are poetries. So anybody can write. So from his days till today, the main challenge, or as always, finding an audience in the midst of tumult of seemingly ubiquitous, often ridiculous work spewed or media conglomerates, would be prospects for media conglomerate buyouts and such. We have to, see his language vocabulary. It's really like tongue twisters. The question is to find the living tissue, the live wires, and connect them. That, and of course, being able to see through language in both senses of seeing through as lens and persistence. In this interview, he answered for many questions. The one interesting for me, the last question, I have taken that question and I have included in this PPT. So I have given the link of his interview at the end of the PPT, so you can read and enjoy his full interview. So, according to me, so till the 5-day course, what I understand, what I explored, explained here. When people talk about theories, if they talk about feminism, maybe they may have a sound knowledge on that particular topic, feminism. People immediately think those who talk about feminism are activists, feminists. And if they talk about Marxism, then immediately they brand those people a Marxist. If they well versed in one particular topic, it doesn't mean that, sometimes they have deep knowledge, thirst, outburst also for certain people. But here, when I talk about that electronic literature, even one of my friend is participating here. She also asked me, do you really support this? It's not that whether I'm supporting or not. It is a new genre, a new literature, infant literature. So we have to embrace, we have to explore. Before we say this is not good, we have to read what is there. So, according to me, this new literature is thrilling, exciting, enticing, and learning literature in a new perspective. Like many, I am not comfortable to read many poems and video games, but I cannot deny the fact that this literature kindles my curiosity to unfold the puzzles behind this new genre. Giving an introduction about this new digital born literature does not affect or reduce my interest toward the print literature. In fact, because of this same, I am getting more and more fascinated to print literature. When I read poems of Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Emerson, Emily Dickinson, you would have noticed, the collection, the names here and there. My favorite poets. I feel like, due to this COVID-19, we shut ourselves to doors, waiting for, actually longing for normal life. That kind of feeling, when I come out of this electronic literature, certainly. Everyone agrees the fact this shutdown teaches new things to us. This EL, one among them. For me, with COVID-19 lockdown has many positive things. One such positive thing is this electronic literature. Because of this, I concentrated more on this literature because it needs a lot of patience, because I always say we are not digital natives. I don't know, some of them are here, young generation, even though young generation, that digital natives are still in UG. So probably I don't see here any UG students. So I can say all, right, digital immigrants. So this electronic literature, actually, I would like to work more on this. I just want to, enable some of the softwares to read more works on volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. And then, as I insist and I request to all of you to work on this evolving literature, write assignments based on your interest. There are a lot more to write. I have given all the sites, the links which I have used for this 5-day lecture. You can see here, when you get your PPT, when you get your notes, you will get to know that, right? I just want to show you some of the interesting stories